Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Son of a Blitch podcast. I'm your host, George Blitch, and I just wrapped up a wonderful conversation with Tyler Vanderkolk, who is the owner of Archery Country, which is located in Austin, Texas. If you're in the outdoor community, you've probably heard about Archery Country before. There are a lot of people who highly suggest going and checking it out. They've had some amazing events that they have with some people that work in the outdoor industry, wild game chefs like Jesse Griffiths, Cameron Haynes, Tim Kennedy. Obviously, if you watch or listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, you've heard him talk about Archery Country too at length. There's a reason, guys. The community that Tyler has built is second to none. It is amazing. They have all sorts of wonderful people that work there, and they're going to meet you where you're at. If you're a very much like a beginner, like I was, I've shot some bows and arrows with my friends, and some that when I was a kid, but I kind of walked in there very green, and they kind of took me through the steps, went back, figured out what was a good fit for me, figured out my draw length, what I could pull back poundage wise, and then they set me up to try out some different bows there too to see what I had a good feel with. We kind of ran out of time because, like I said, I was coming back from vacation and was trying to get the family back home, so I ended up hitting the pause button that day. But I also really got a good feel for what it was that I was going to go forward with. And then, of course, as I'm talked about in some other podcasts too, starting that archery journey and doing a series of podcasts. This is the first one because this is where it started it all. And I wanted to shine some light on Archery Country and all the wonderful things they got going on, and especially Tyler. He's really a community mindset guy. He's done all sorts of different things, whether it's, running his own AC filter, company, whether it's selling goats online, being a taxidermist, eventually being the man who's running Archery Country. He's done it all. And one of the things that he does throughout this is he cares about bringing together like-minded community people for something larger than himself. He's a really, really great guy, and I think you guys are going to love hearing about his journey and what it is, his ethos and his beliefs about Archery Country, and making sure that he's meeting you wherever you are. You are coming in as a beginner, you're coming in as an expert, you need help. They've got someone who's going to be there and going to be the right fit for you to get whatever it is you want out of that experience. He does a lot of work within the community and in and around Austin with the youth and getting them involved. He just wrapped up a fundraiser where now they have enough funds to start up in 2 more elementaries or junior highs and high schools programs to get kids involved with archery. So it's not like they're necessarily trying to, turn everyone into a hunter, but just the process of mindfulness, going out there on the range and shooting and the mechanics that are involved, man, it's very therapeutic. And so, maybe that might inspire people to get into the hunting world or whatever. And, there's the equipment for that. Whatever it is you are looking to get out of the experience, Archery Country is going to help you get there. And they have a great staff along the way. I can tell you that. Great people. Tyler is just a wonderful, wonderful man. I'm so glad I got to chat with him today and learn more about him and Archery Country. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy this podcast. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's educational. It's all the things I hope to have that I can provide to you guys in a podcast. And so you guys are going to enjoy this one with Tyler Vanderkolk from Archery Country. Make sure you guys go check out the show notes, check out the links, and go see him in person. Please, please, please. You will be so glad you did. And sign up on his website for notifications when some of these events are going through next time that Jesse Griffiths does some stuff there with him or whoever it may be, Tim Kennedy, Cam Haynes. There's so many different people, Tyler Jones from The Element, from Meat Eater. There's so many people who put on some great stuff there, and you will be very, very glad you did. So again, without further ado, here is the podcast with Tyler Vanderkolk. You guys enjoy. Please share this with a friend. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed and followed this podcast, please do. I got some more great guests coming up that I think that you will enjoy. So you guys have a wonderful day, and thanks for tuning in. Cheers. Hey, Tyler, how you doing today, man?
How's it going, George? How are you, man?
Fantastic, man. I am so excited to chat with you, talk about Archery Country, all the wonderful things you got going on. But, as you may know, with a lot of my guests, I like to kind of start at the very beginning and give listeners a little bit idea of who you are, where you come from. So maybe you can just kind of talk about where you're born and raised and how you got involved in the outdoor lifestyle. And then we'll thread that through to Archery Country and all the great things you got kicking right now.
All the stuff. Yeah, man. So it's a pretty wild one. So I think you've probably heard this on another podcast, but I'm going to tell you fifth because I don't want to lie to you. I could be a sixth generation Austinite, but there's some turmoil in the family here on whether who was really here and back in the day. But anyway, long story short, I'm a fifth, sixth generation Austinite. I was born and raised here, went to high school here. That's kind of how I that's as far as I went for education. I kind of did that. And man, it's for me, it was one of those deals where I was trying to carve it out right out of high school. I was like, I'm going to go for gusto right out of high school. I don't need to go to college. I'm going to go open my own business and I'm going to be a billionaire by the time I'm 40 years old. And that did not work out, but it was a good college effort there. Man, the reality is, like I said, born and raised in Austin, grew up here. I graduated from high school. I worked for a year for my dad's company, and this all plays into the thing here, but
Right.
worked for a year for my dad. My dad worked for an air conditioning company, and I worked for them for a year. That was 1997. I started working for him, hated working for my dad because he was expected the world of me. So they'd make me do all the really, really bad stuff in the early and late, all that, trying to install some work ethic here.
Sure.
Anyway, I did that for a year. Well, one thing I noticed at the AC company was they would get tons of phone calls for people wanting filter service. So they would sell a maintenance contract, and that maintenance contract, oh, sorry about that. I need to turn that off. My maintenance contract would, in essence, be it would be one of those deals where they would sell a maintenance contract. They would do all this kind of stuff, and then they would not do the filter part of it because they were like, dude, we don't have time. We have a legit job on the south side of town that is going to need big money and big stuff going on, and we don't have time for it. There's no time to go change filters. So my little wheels got to spinning, and I was like, man, I'll start a filter company. So the abridged version is in 1998, October of 1998, I started a business called Austin Filter Service Company. I was just changing AC filters in commercial places, and I would literally just tell people, man, I'm just going to come in, I'm going to change out your AC filters, and then I'm going to leave. And that was all I did. I wasn't trying to sell them a plan. I wasn't trying to talk them into doing work on their units. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. And so fast forward that whole time from my senior year until that started, I was just getting into hunting. I didn't come from a hunting background. My dad was a Vietnam guy that really had no flair for killing stuff and going and doing that. So I got into it with some buddies of mine, doing the rifle thing and all that. Anyway, I had that filter company, and what I learned was it would be super busy in the summer months, and then in the winter months it would dump off. So I started guiding down in South Texas with a buddy of mine, which, hindsight, I had no business guiding because I had been hunting like 3 years. And I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, man. I'm walking around out here for javelinas and whitetails like I know what they're going to do or where they're at. I'm just like, well, we'll come across one here at some point. So anyway, I did that. I picked up, so the guy that I did that with was a taxidermist. And so from the year 2000 until about 2005, I was doing taxidermy on the side with him, just doing little fun stuff and whatever. So did that. In 2005, the Steiner family, which is a rodeo family out of Austin here, they bought Archery Country. Well, when they bought it, I knew Sid through some other stuff, and Sid was like, hey, he was like, you ought to put a taxidermy shop in. We already have hunters coming there. It's a good,
Sure.
there's a crossover there. Let's try and do it. So I did it. So once again, I had no business being a taxidermist because the Steiners were telling, dude, this is bad. The Steiners were telling their friends, like, hey, this is the only guy to do your taxidermy. You got to use Tyler. He's the best. He's the guy that does our taxidermy. They ran in a circle of people that I had no business. I was 2 years out of like doing it on my own. And like one of my first customers was Rick Perry, the governor of the state of Texas. One of the next ones after that was like Nolan Ryan. And I'm like, I'm taking it on like I'm ready for the world. Like looking back on it now, I'm like, I had no bit. I should have gotten like a real taxidermist to do their stuff and get like good work to them. But anyway, everybody did it. It was cool. But that's my connection to the archery shop here. So in 2005 or 2006, somewhere in there, I put a taxidermy business in with Sid here at Archery Country. Sid had just bought Archery Country. And I ran that until 2016. I ran both of those businesses. So I ran the filter company and that. Um, in the middle of that was all kinds of other really stupid adventures.
Well, yeah, you
I
sold
sold goats
goats.
online, dude. I sold goats online. I had goatdealer.com with a buddy of mine. Dude,
Yes.
brutal, man.
How did that
So,
happen? What was that? I gotta ask, man. How did you
dude,
get into selling goats?
oh man. So there's a crazy story behind this. And this could be a movie at some point, but a buddy of mine was one of those movers and shakers. There's a guy named James Stinson out of Austin here. He's one of my best friends, has been forever. So there was a guy that was there. So I don't know if you remember back in the day. Do you remember the green sheet? Like it was in Austin. It was called the green sheet, and it was just a classified ads
Yeah,
newspaper. They had them all over town.
sure.
You could get them anywhere, whatever. So we saw an ad in the green sheet for a guy wanting to buy goats, paying up to like $75 a piece. And there was another guy that was trying to sell goats and he was wanting like $50 a piece for them. So me and Stinson, being the great entrepreneurial minds that we are, we're like, dude, here's our chance. So we end up buying these goats for like, I don't remember what it was, $50 and selling them to this guy for $75. So we sold 50 goats and made $25 a goat. Whatever. To us, it was awesome. We sold goats. We made money doing it. And with the money we made, we ended up buying another set of goats. So if you want to hear one of the most clustered, you know what, stories of all time, our first load of goats, we borrowed a trailer from a guy and we drove down to, I don't remember where it was. It was somewhere like San Antonio or something like that. We buy 100 goats. Those 100 goats, we put them in the trailer and they were just all in the trailer. We were going to haul them back to Austin. We had them sold for more money, and we were like, dude, we're going to be rich. We're eating steak tonight. Life is good.
Or a goat.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So we were like, hey, this is going to be legit. We're going to make some money here. This will be awesome. Fast forward, we forgot to shut a trap door on the front of the trailer. So we pull out on the highway, and Stinson's like, oh my God, look at that. And dude, there are goats just one by one piling out this side door all on a highway. I mean, we shut down a highway in a town for probably 2 hours with 50 goats before we could get out there and shut the door. And they're just walking through fences. The sheriff's posse's out there trying to load them up. Dude, it was the biggest cluster of all time. It was so bad. And that was, you would think, being an intelligent person, you'd be like, maybe this ghost stuff isn't for us. But we doubled down on it. We were like, no, we just had a little hiccup, a little bump in the road. We're going to make some real money doing this. So we started goatdealer.com. I say we, Stinson was really the one that started it. I kind of was along for the ride, and we sold thousands of goats every year, and we never actually owned a goat. The deal was we had ranchers that would put together piles of goats. We would take pictures of them, put them online, sell them for $25 more a goat or whatever. And that was our shtick. It was our way to make some extra spending money because filters weren't paying all the bills. Taxidermy wasn't paying all the bills. It was just a cluster. But anyway, I did that, and it's cool because it's part of the story of like an entrepreneur. Like in my mind, it was part of the story of being an entrepreneur because I never thought about maybe I should stop being an idiot and bouncing on friends' couches and eating ramen noodles and stuff. Maybe I should just go to college and get a real job and go work at a bank and have a solid income and whatever. It never crossed my mind. Dumb as a box of rocks. I was just like, nah, we're gonna make it big one day. I'm gonna sell enough goats to have a mansion in South Austin or whatever it was. It was just I could never wrap my head around like a 9 to 5 or doing something like that. I just was like, man, I gotta make moves. We got to get to bigger and better things. So anyway, all that being said, started the filter company. I had the filter company rolling. It was going through this whole thing. We were selling sheep and goats. I was doing the taxidermy, and I was just working around the clock doing all this stuff. So that all changed in 2016, when the Steiners kind of came to me and were like, "Hey, we're ready to sell it. You're the one we're gonna kind of approach first on this." To which I was like, "Man, this sounds awesome." It was what I wanted to do. So, make a long story short, I didn't have the money to put together to do it. I called a couple buddies of mine that were um, movers and shakers in the Austin area here, and I was like, "Hey, want to make some bad decisions together running an archery shop?" I was like, "I don't know how to do it, but we're smart guys. We can figure this out." So at the time, I had sold my filter company to my brother, and just basically had taken that money and put that in my bank account. I still had the taxidermy business. I still have the taxidermy to this day. It's still functioning next door right now. And then Archery Country, when we bought it, I was the idiot once again, the entrepreneur that never quit, was like, "I'm going to blow this thing up. I'm going to make it a nationwide name brand that people know about, people want to go to, make it a destination. Like, I'm going to do all this stuff." And it's funny because I remember at the time, the manager of the store was kind of like, "Yeah, I've heard this before, like, whatever." And I remember thinking, like, "Man, that sucks," because I was hoping he would buy in and like want to help me try and grow this thing and build something tangible and something that people would want to do. And I could tell he wasn't that. So we ended up keeping him for a year, and then he kind of boogied. And um, anyway, here we are now. 8 years later, we're talked about by Joe Rogan, and all the players have been here, and we're kind of it. And this is the first year I'm not taking in a bunch of extra taxidermy because I'm like, I can't manage it. It's too much. The archery shop is this whole solar system that just feeds itself, and it requires more of me, which means less of me next door at the taxidermy shop. So something's got to give. And like I was telling you, I got a wife and two kids. I got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old that I still like to go watch them play soccer and football and try and be a dad and stuff like that. So it's one of those side deals, man. I try to do the work life balance thing. I'm pretty bad at it, but it's a it's a concerted effort we try and do.
Well,
But
it's a lot, man. And I mean, you've always been kind of a juggler of those, like you said, kind of that entrepreneurial mindset.
yeah,
I kind of
no
want
doubt.
to, I definitely want to dive into more of what's happening these days, but I think we need to also step back a little bit and talk
Yeah,
about kind of your connection with archery because,
yeah,
I know you said you got started later on in life as far as
yeah,
hunting, 17, 18, going with some buddies
yep,
and things there too.
yeah.
And you very kind of quickly moved into saying, "Oh, man, the rifle thing just wasn't all that for me."
I
And
did.
it wasn't as exciting. It seemed kind of like an easy, okay. I think you were watching like a UT game or
I
something, and
totally
like,
was, dude. I remember the day it changed for me, and it was the UT. It was that story, which was basically I really wanted to watch this UT football game, and I had one of those old school little black and white
yep,
TVs, and I brought it up to a stand with me. It had a little power pack thing to it, and literally, I had a heater going, I had the game going, I had a thermos full of stuff. A deer stepped out, and I was like, that's pretty good. When I take that, and so I'm like, hold on a minute, and open the window, boom, shoot it, watch it fall, and I'm like, oh, it's down right there.
turn the
Nothing's gonna
volume
happen.
back
And the
up.
third
Yeah,
quarter's almost over. So I'm sit back. So I kind of did that, and at some point, you get to where you're like, it's just the challenge is gone, and the next step after that for me was going to like iron sights on
Mhm.
like a 30-30. I went to a store here in Austin, bought a Marlin 30-30, and I hunted deer that way for a while, but you're still good to 100 yards like anything else. So, you're 100 yards from a deer, 80 yards from a deer, it has no idea you're there, and you're like, well, here we go, let's take that one. I don't know. I wanted more. I was hoping for more. I wanted more adrenaline rush out of it and stuff. And the only upside to it at the time, it was a desire to hunt, but at the time it was also I was broke. Like we had no money. So me and my buddies would kill a deer, and it was like Christmas Day, man. If you came home and you were like, dude, I busted one today, man. We're eating backstraps tonight. We'd go fire up our little Weber in the garage and like eat it over charcoal. And it might as well have been a filet mignon from Perry's, man, to us. I mean, it was
Right,
like,
right.
dude, this is it, man. This is living. But it wasn't a necessity for food because we had a little money. We could go to HEB or something like that. But at the end of the day, it was kind of what we wanted to do. We were wanting it, and I was starting to develop a love of hunting that I really wanted to pursue and be better at. And archery seemed like the next step into it. And the story there, the beginning of archery for me was, as weird as it sounds, there was this is really weird, but there was a car auto inspection place here in Austin called Allen's Inspections. Alan had a wall of death, and Alan gave zero, you know what's, if you didn't like hunting or you didn't want to see dead deer or any of that stuff. He had a wall of them in his shop, just him with deer, and he was a trad bow hunter, so he killed everything with not everything, but killed a lot of it with trad gear. Well, I'm getting my car inspected there one day, my truck, and I was like, man, this archery stuff looks legit. I was like, I want to get into it. You know, eventually I'm going to get into this and whatever. And he goes, man, go get a bow and I'll teach you. And I was like, yeah, cool, man. Whatever. I blew it off like just a guy talking. Fast forward about a month, I'm in a town called Burnett, which is just north of Austin here, probably an hour north and west. I'm fishing out there because there's Lake Buchanan out there. So I'm fishing for striper. Buddy had a little crappy boat. We had no business being on that lake, but we were out doing it. And I run into Alan at the HEB in Burnett. We were there buying groceries for our little camp out thing and all that. And he's like, hey, offer still stands, man. Get you a bow, dude. I'll teach you how to do it. And I don't know how or why, but I went to a pawn shop and I bought a black bear bow. And I was like, I'm gonna hold this guy to the fire, man. So I went back to Allen's Inspections like the following week, and I was like, hey, you told me if I got a bow, you'd help with this or whatever. And he's like, right on, dude. He was like, I told you I would. And he's like, yeah, let's go to Archery Country. So we actually came here to Archery Country in Austin. And it was funny because back then he was like, we're only going to deal with a guy named Matt. Everybody else is douchebags there. He's like, don't talk to him. He's like, we're going to go in. He's like, if Matt's not there, we're going to turn around and we're going to go get a drink and we're going to come back when Matt's
Come back
here.
another day.
Like, yeah. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. So anyway, that was the plan. We did that. It was cool because he took me down this like rabbit hole of like showing me what everything was and what its purpose was, which is kind of something that we do now when we sell a bow to someone. We don't just say, you're going to want this rest, you're going to want this sight, you're going to do this. We're like, well, this is the difference. This is the difference in a stationary rest, a whisker biscuit. This is the difference in a drop away. This is what you can, here's pros and cons. Here's what some people like, here's what some people hate. Here's whatever it is. I remember walking away thinking I was much more knowledgeable. Like I had learned 5 years worth of stuff and I had taken 5 years worth of learning out of my process because I had this like really, really good teacher, but also a really, really good guy that would explain kind of what I was doing. And at the time I didn't know I would put that into business practice at a later point. I didn't have any idea I was going to own an archery shop, archery shop that I would do. But at the time I remember thinking, man, I'd be really cool if every business kind of functioned like that, where you walked away and you were like, wow, I made a good investment, number one. And also I feel knowledgeable of what I have. It wasn't like, I remember walking out of the gun store buying a Marlin 3030 and being like, man, I hope I can figure out where to put a bullet in this freaking thing. It's not like my shotgun and I've never owned another gun. So I don't know what, I didn't grow up doing it. So I was like, I don't know what to do with this thing. And I remember thinking that, like, you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. So I remember subconsciously, I guess, if anything else, just in my mind thinking I knew a lot more than everybody else around me because I was like, man, I picked up this weapon and I feel super confident with it. And I also feel like I know how it functions. I know how it works. I know what I'm capable of at distances and stuff like that. And it started it for me. So Alan had a deer lease out in Burnett. He would take me out to, and dude, every 30-pound and under pig was, dude, it was bad times for those guys, man. Because I had shot a couple of the big ones and never retrieved them because I just didn't make bad shots, but I didn't know how to blood trail. I didn't know how to do any of the stuff. So I just look around and be like, I don't know where it went. Uh, the little ones died easy. So I was like, those microwavable ones, these little 30 and 40 pounders are catching it, man. And I was just out there plugging away at these guys. So anyway, all that to say, I cut my teeth on pigs in the hill country. I shot probably 50 of them before I was even to a point where I was like, man, I'm ready to take on a deer or something like that. So it was cool, man. It was one of those deals where I don't know what my archery journey would have been, but I do know that that particular there was a definite point in time when I was like, man, what a really cool thing, and I really feel like I know it, and it's really cool that I've decided to pick this up. There was a fire in me that was like, I want to do more of that, whatever that was, more of that. Like I have no desire to have this for 30-30. I need to go sell this thing and buy a new bow and all that stuff. And anyway, that's how it kind of happened for me, man. I was just of the opinion that I was like, man, I just need to get my act together on this and figure it out, man. This is where I want to be, what I want to do. So
That's awesome, man. You still have that first animal, right? Didn't you make like a little kind of your own little trophy in the
I
shrine that you
did.
still have? I love that
Man.
story.
It's still in my backyard, man. It's a javelina skull on a Texas flag that I spray painted, and it is terrible. It is. I don't even want to say I did it because I know people are going to be like, "Aren't you a taxidermist, man?" Terrible. But anyway, yeah,
this is draft one, right?
yeah, I do remember doing it. I do remember boiling the head in my driveway and being like, man, I bit off way more than I could chew for this. I had every neighborhood cat for 7 miles just munching down on heavy cheeks in the driveway. And I'm like, oh man, this is
It's one way
bad.
to clean it. Yeah.
There's one way. I mean, I got it done, but ultimately there was probably better ways. But anyway, it was fun, man. And I'm not going to say that was my start to taxidermy. The taxidermy
Right.
stuff was wild because it kind of fed the same machine in that I was going out and hunting, and I was like, Alan was a big proponent. The guy that originally taught me was a big proponent of like, use the animal. He's like, if you're going to kill it, if you're going to take its life, he's like, don't drag it off and feed the coyotes, or don't just take the hams or just the back straps and then chunk it. He was like, man, use the animal, dude. And which is cool. Like, see, you have Jesse's books back there and all that stuff. That's a big thing he preaches and stuff.
Yeah.
As a new hunter, I didn't know what that stuff was good for. And at the time, I remember keeping front shoulders and being like, what am I going to do with this crap? You can't throw it on a grill, and I'm not going to do it. One day later, when I got the little hand grinder at the house and made breakfast sausage, and I was like, oh man, this is legit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't know if you don't know. So there was a lot of learning curve as far as when they would take me into the woods. They realized pretty quick, man, I was just killing these animals and I wasn't really blood trail. And they were like, well, blood trail, go look for blood. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, dude. I was like, when I shoot them with a rifle, they fall right there. And, it's not that I was that dumb to think they just fall right there with an arrow, but in my mind, there would be a ton of blood leading up to a dead animal right there. I didn't realize sometimes they lay up and they plug the hole with the dirt and then they keep running and stuff like that. There's just so much to learn. And that was where there was like a second teaching lessons there, because then Alan and them were like, cool, well, this kid really does have the fire, so let's really teach him this stuff. So those guys would go do it. And those guys were the old school. They'd have thunderhead broadheads and stuff like that. And they would take the one that they were going to hunt with, they would shoot that into a target, make sure it was flying right, and then they'd be like, all right, cool, well, that's the one I'm going to hunt with. So now pull it out of the target. And they were like, well, we might have dulled it up shooting it into that foam, and we owe it to this animal for the quickest death we can get. So they go hone it on a thing that's been an hour out there at the campfire just sharpening an edge, and they just like poke it on their arm to make sure if it shaved hair that was good, they put it back in their quiver. But anyway, it was that kind of stuff. I learned all that stuff by proxy. I didn't come from that background, so you just kind of jump in the game and do it. And I don't know, it ended up being really cool, man. I ended up taken a lot of lessons away from that stuff, of which I still put to practice. I still do some of that stuff. So
Well, that's
yeah,
amazing. That mentorship is so important too. There's so many things like you just talked about, even like just game trail, right? We just this last weekend were hunting, and my buddy shot a beautiful melanistic doe out on the ranch,
that's
and there was four of us that were out there helping him looking around, and
sure.
one of the guys was like, I'd started looking for game trail cameras because you guys talked about like that path of
Sure.
least resistance, and he went and found it because he followed this trail, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's cool. We talked to you about that, and that's
Yeah.
something that years ago, but it stays with you. And not that we're some grand mentors here, but the idea of like when someone takes the time and teaches you and the things that you can learn and what you can
Yeah.
then put in your own, proverbial quiver, if you
No
will.
doubt.
Like
Yeah.
those are the things that too, like we pass on. This is generational, right? You can be able to pass on to your kids
It
and
is.
our friends, our nephews and
Yeah.
nieces and whatever it may be, or daughters, like
For sure.
we're teaching them and passing on what we've learned. And that I kind of want to tie that back into you talked about like having, that one guy that they say, hey, we're going to go see Matt there. And, if he's not there, we're bouncing because that was the guy
Yep.
that people trusted. And,
That's the guy.
now I've been to your store whenever I decided I wanted to get into archery. There was only one place I was going to go to start that journey, and that was there to Archery Country. I've had so many people tell me wonderful things, friends of mine who work in the industry who are like, listen, go check that out and go talk to you. And went in there, and this staff was something that I understand as you talk about it now. What it was important to you and being able to have
Sure.
guides along the way and having people and I think that I want to touch on this idea too of how intimidating it can be for someone when they're going into a rifle store or archery, and you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know, and then it's an intimidating thing to ask these questions that may be dumb questions to you, but it's like those people that you might have heard, those people that are behind the counter might have heard that 1,000 times, but they need to treat it like it's the first time and walk you through each step and meet people where they are. And I think I'd love to hear you talk about that idea of how you want to create an environment and an atmosphere that is very welcoming to people of all different levels and why that's important to you.
So what I'll say is when we took this thing on, I wanted to approach it from the standpoint of everybody's a beginner. Unless they tell you otherwise, they're in there just trying their best with what they have. And so I was like, the first thing we will never do is make fun of people's equipment. I was like, because I remember walking in with an old bow. I remember I bought a bow. This is bad on me, but I bought at the time there was a PSE Nova, which was a super popular bow back in the day, and I bought a PSE Nova, and it was a Team Fitzgerald thing, and it was literally, I want to say it was like $199 or $299, and it was a package. It had everything on it, and I bought it at like a Bass Pro. You bought it out of the catalog, it shipped to your house. So I was proud of that bow. I really was. I came to Archery Country. I'm like, dude, this is legit. I got a new bow. I'm not shooting this old pawn shop piece of junk. Whatever. Um, I got the bow, and I remember walking in, and not the main tech there at Archery Country, but one of the guys that worked there, crotchety old guy. I remember him just kind of looking at it and being like, "Oh wow, they must be having a sale at Bass Pro or something like that." And it was the first time I remember being like, "That sucks, man! Like I freaking just spent, like to me, the $300 or the two whatever it
Hard-earned
was,
money.
it might as well have been $5,000. I didn't have it. I was scraped to put it together. I was banking on selling this other bow at the pawn shop to put the rest of the money together so I wasn't overdrawn and could eat that week. It was one
Hmm.
of those deals. And I remember being not disheartened by it, but I remember being like, what a douche, man. Like, that's a crappy move. Fast forward to when I own it, I was like, we're going to treat everybody like they're new until they say they're not. And to me, I kind of equate it to like, you watch your language until you find what company you're in. If you're in a bunch of dudes dropping F bombs and stuff, you're like, all right, well, whatever. But, if you're with the pastor of the church, you might be like, well, I'm going to calm down on the F bombs this afternoon until whatever. To me, it's the same deal. Until a guy comes in and has his bow and is like, hey, this is my fourth bow. Dude, I killed this giant mule deer in Colorado last year. Check this out. I want to get this one set up. I'm like, cool. We don't need to go through the basics here, but it's a place to start. So to me, The biggest thing was the intimidation factor. And it was funny because I had this conversation. I went to a TAC event last year, the Total Archery Challenge
Yep.
thing, and I had dinner with that Donnie Vincent guy. And I was a fly on the wall for this lunch thing. We were just all kind of hanging out, eating food and all that. And Donnie Vincent, super famous, movie guy, does a bunch of stuff, really good hunter, all that stuff. He was telling a story about the first time he bought a bow. He spent 3 hours in the parking lot just trying to get his nuts up to walk inside and talk to them. He was like, I just knew they were going to be like, dude, you can't even draw 50 pounds, dude. My freaking wife draws 50 pounds. Get out of here, dude, or whatever. He was like, I just knew it. And he was like, it wasn't that way. But he was like, in my mind, I had built up the scenario to where it was bad. And that's the one thing we kind of did when we started this over here was I was like, we cannot have those scenarios play out. We can't. I was like, it's something to where somebody's bringing in their hard-earned money. This is extracurricular. This isn't something of necessity in life. And then to take it a step further, it's a niche of extracurricular because the gun industry is 80 times larger than this industry. So it's a niche of a niche. And then on top of that, you're spending good money and you're coming in intimidated. Like you don't know what you can draw. I don't know what I can draw. Like I remember the first time Rogan had a 90-pound bow. I'm like, no, I can draw a 90-pound bow. I don't know what this thing freaking draws like, and whatever. I could draw it back. Luckily, it wasn't too bad. Sorry, man. It wasn't too bad, but I remember thinking, like, dude, I don't know how. I don't know if I can do it, man. And I'm going to be right here in front of Joe Rogan. He's like, yeah, go shoot my bow. Shoot it through paper. Let's see if it's tuned. And I'm like, oh, dude, here we go, dude. This is going to be real bad. So anyway, all that to say, the main thing we did when we started it was basically we all sat down and we were like, look, we were all here at one point. At some point, we all walked into a shop, green. We didn't know what we were doing. And how do you want to be treated? So put that into practice every day. Take people where they're at and make the best of what you have, the situation, because you're going to deal with guys that we set bows up for some people that are better shots than us. I was working on a guy's bow the other day and he's a shop shooter for us. And I'm like, I don't have any business working on this guy's bow. This guy shoots 10 times better than I'll ever shoot. He can walk out back right now and put one in a tack at 80 yards. I'd be lucky to get a pipe blade out there. So the reality is you kind of take people where they're at. But as far as back to our business, I set out to have younger guys that weren't the crotchety old guys, and I didn't want them too young to where you're dealing with a 15-year-old and you're like, dude, this kid doesn't even know, he doesn't have any life experience. So how's he going to help me on my mule deer hunt in Alberta that I paid $20,000 for? Or vice versa. You have the guy that comes in and whatever. I mean, there's so many scenarios that play out every day over here. But at the end of the day, taking people where they're at and really trying to just give them as much knowledge as you possibly can so they feel informed, and then when they walk out they're like, what a cool bunch of dudes, man. They can talk whatever it is. Like I got guys, I have the one thing cool about this shop is I have somebody for everybody. If you're a vegan hardcore PETA person, well, I got a guy for that. If you're a college preppy kid, I got a guy for that. If you're a super redneck and you're whatever, I got a guy for that. Like, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we know it. So we play on those strengths and weaknesses. And it's benefited us now because when people come in, they don't come in and think, man, the intimidation factor is there. They come in, there's cool music playing, and then they walk up and my guys are like, what's up, man? What can we help you with? And it usually automatically puts them at ease. And if they have kids, we're like, hey, man, here's a quarter, go get some Skittles and hang out for a second. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff that we do to just put you at ease, because the reality is it's an intense situation and everybody's personality is different. So some people super stress out on it, like Donnie Vincent waiting 3 hours in a parking lot before he gets the gall up to go in, or you have guys that just walk in like they know everything, and you're like, this guy doesn't know anything, but whatever, I'm going to still help him like that. So the reality is, I don't know what's right or wrong. I do know customer service will get you far, and that's the one thing we kind of leaned on here was at the end of the day. 99% of what I have on the wall, short of a PSE or a Matthews or a Bowtech or Hoyt or whatever, you can go buy it online. You can go to Amazon, you can go to Lancaster, you can get all that stuff delivered right to your house, and you're better for it. You can put it on yourself, watch a couple Dudley videos, and you're in business. You can start shooting a bow. So the reality is we got to give them a reason to come here, which we lean on customer service and being cool and all that kind of stuff. So I know when you came in, you dealt with, was it Tommy?
Yep.
Was he who you dealt with?
Yeah, Tommy was great. And, I brought in quite the crew. We had just come from Kalahari. So we're up there in Round Rock, right? So we're all still dripping wet from the water park, right? And my wife, Meg, my youngest, Ellie. And then I had my brother-in-law there, his two sons, my mother-in-law. So we brought like the whole family caravan, right?
You had the whole crew.
And you guys treated everyone so well. My daughter was like, I want to go ahead and organize these arrows over here because there's like some colors, and the guys like, okay, you can do this, you can't do that. But like, it was just fun, and they just had a great time. And, and of course, I went back there and, I had a little hiccup in the sense that, well, I wanted to walk this through too. So as far as like, whenever I went there, what we did is figured out my draw length, and we're looking at different types of bows, and he's bringing a couple back for me to try out. And then we're just shooting at paper, maybe about 5 yards or so, maybe, and just as far as seeing and kind of getting a feel for that. So there's like a side room where you kind of go and kind of get a sense of things, making sure, hey, you're not going to get any arm slaps, and different things like here's the kind of a technique, how you're going to hold it, and just kind of getting a little bit comfortable, not getting too much into super crazy technique yet, but just getting a feel for it, and, feeling which one feels better. And so got to start somewhere. And that was a great thing. And then all of a sudden Tommy's like, hey, are you right eye dominant? And I was like, I'm not totally sure. And he's like, okay, hold on. And so we did a test real quick, and he's like, okay, you're left eye dominant. And my left eye has always been my strong eye, but I didn't really fully, I shot with my right eye, my whole life. Which is kind of crazy. I was born left-handed, and then like 2 years old, I dipped my hand in my dad's coffee when he's holding it. Never went with my left hand ever again. So,
No way.
I'm having to unleash layers of, repressed memories here. But
trauma.
When he did that, he's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and get you a left-handed bow and see if you can even do it. Like right now, figure out, so we tuned down the poundage so I could do that. And then he was like, you actually don't look he didn't say you look comfortable, but he's like, you don't look too awkward. But then the more I was shooting there, he's like, okay, here's something you need to think about. And that was about eye dominance. And, before we kind of go further into talking about that, I'd love for you to address that idea, because eye dominance in shooting a rifle is different than eye dominance in a bow. And I feel like for people who may be coming into it and, the idea that they want to get into archery, can you talk about the importance of how sometimes it may be, what the difference is if you go with your non-dominant and dominant eye, and maybe how that trajectory of how it can plateau or can keep going depending on what you do and why?
So you can learn any way to shoot. You can teach yourself, you can do anything. What I always tell people, the main thing for me is take everything else out of the equation, take shooting on the range, take all that stuff out of the equation. The reality is when you're in a hunt situation and there's a deer there, or there's an elk, and your heart's going 80 miles an hour, and you're looking at this animal and you're like, can I move now? Can I not move now? Can I do what's my next move? Am I good? Is my sight adjusted to this yardage? Like, there's so many things going through your head. You're always going to go back to the automatics, and eye dominance falls into that. So if you draw back and you're left eye dominant, but you're making it with a right-handed bow, well, you're not thinking of your step process like you are out on my shooting range, where you're like, all right, let's get my feet the right width apart. Let's come back to draw. Let's put our nose on the string. Let's make sure we're all lined up. All that's thrown out the door. You're trying to breathe. You're trying to just focus on breathing, but not too loud to where you shake the animal. So you'll go back to bad habits. You'll go, and that's the way I look at it. Go to what your body is telling you first thing to do. So if you do it and it's really awkward, and then you do it with your left hand and you're like, oh wow, this is this feels, I feel like I aim better. I feel like this is it. Well, then teach yourself to do it that way. Because the reality is, in the heat of the moment, the situation, you're going to fall apart. We all do. I'm by no means saying you or making fun of anybody, because I'm just as guilty of it. I draw back, and there's times when I draw back and I have to close my eyes and be like, all right, breathe. Let's get the heart rate down here, because you're having a minor heart attack here. And then you settle in and you go through your steps and all that stuff. But the reality is, you want to have something that's set up that is the most routine for you and what you do. So if eye dominance is that thing, you don't want to come back to full draw on a right hand bow and then all of a sudden you're looking over your string trying to get your other eye in there because you've forgotten all of your steps. You're just heat of the moment. You're like, I got to shoot this bull. He's at 40 yards right there. We got to make this happen now. So that's why I say the dominant stuff really matters. And that's why Tommy took the time to do that. That's why you do that, because a lot of people don't know, or they do know, but they're like, I don't even know if I can do it. And we're like, cool. Well, there's one way to find that out. Let's go set up the bow, your draw length. Let's go do it. It's at 5 yards. We're not trying to see how you do it. We're trying to make sure you can get form. You can look through it. Everything lines up and it looks good. Because if it's way too long, if it's back here or up here or whatever, we can adjust for that and we can get it to where you're more comfortable with the way it kind of plays out. So anyway, that's why I would say it does. Everything's thrown out the door in the heat of the moment, man, in my playbook for all these years. And I still get that fired up. I went on a mule deer hunt last year. Same deal. Dude, I am usually calm, cool, composed. A deer steps in. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take that when I draw back. Man, this deer was walking through this maize field, and I was literally I was like, I'm going to shoot him, but I have that one window. So I yanked this sucker back. I'm trying to aim. I'm like, where is he? I'm trying to look for him. And then I'm like, oh, he's there and whatever. And everything went out the window. Like luckily I'd done it so repetitively that it was second nature to get my nose on the string and pull the trigger and go from there. I don't remember aiming. I don't remember like looking through my peep and being like, oh, that's the spot I want to hit. I remember being there and being like, oh, he's there. That's it. Boom, send it. And that's it. And I think that's a big part of it. That's why you practice, and that's why you make sure you have your equipment right, which plays into what you were saying, that, you got to make sure it's all right. And that's why we, like Tommy and them, do that kind of stuff. And it plays into another thing that we do here at the shop, which is like, if you come in and you're like, hey, I don't know which bow is best or worst or what, I don't have a preference. PSE, Matthews, Hoyt, are they all the same? Are they different? What's the difference? How do you know? Well, everybody's different. In my opinion, sometimes a Matthews is more smooth. Sometimes a Hoyt's more smooth. I've had guys sit there with a bow that I thought drew absolutely terrible. Like, I was like, dude, I would never shoot that bow. And this guy's like, man, this thing's way smoother than all those other ones. And I'm like, man, I have no idea what that guy sees. But it's just a difference in the way people function. People draw a bow, or people, whatever it is. So it's just one of those deals. Like I said, there's no right or wrong, man. You take people where they're at and you make it work for the best you can with what you got. So,
well, and
anyway.
What I loved about being there in that is that, like Tommy took the time. And, we kind of, we hit a point that day too, where you guys were having ladies night. So like Wednesday nights, you have ladies nights, there's someone cooking out there. They were all kind of coming in, and he's like, look, man, we could say, hey, this Blitch kid needs like one lane over here.
We need a lane over here.
And I was like, look, I've got my whole family with me, and we had already spent, some significant amount of time, because I was asking lots of questions, and he was very, very patient with me, and when he was going and tuning up the left-hand bow to kind of get to my draw length, the poundage wise and everything, I'm talking to the guys and just, chatting about kind of some of the stuff I do and everything. And, asking questions about bows, and everyone was just so helpful.
I got a
right there.
Eclectic crew I've put together here.
Great crew,
Tommy,
man.
and Jason Jordan there. It's a
good group, man.
They're good dudes, though.
And you see people coming in, like, so, all the ladies are coming in and stuff. And so I knew we still had to make our drive all the way back home. And so I was like, look, he's like, look, we can go ahead and do this, or you can go and, go back to Houston and, find a place that's local to you, go to a shop and just kind of get a feel for what feels right, shoot some different ones and right and left, see which one you want to go with, and then come back here and, then we'll kind of get into your training and stuff too. And I ended up feeling really comfortable with the PSE bow that I had put in my hand. And so I was like, I ended up reaching out to them and kind of worked out to where they sent me one.
Nice. Yeah.
So super stoked with it. Love it. And that's something that I've gone and done some practicing. I got a set up in my backyard, got a set up at the ranch, and so I'm getting there. But I'm kind of wanting to just go through the motions and then come back into you guys and take that next level of training, because there's certain things that I know that I'm going to need help with, and making sure that I'm not developing too many bad habits. Because I'm sure there will be things where I'm like, okay, getting the rest in the exact same spot, getting, the drawback, hitting your nose, all the different things that, I wouldn't know what to
There's
do
a
on my
lot that
own.
goes into it. Yeah.
And just to
Sure.
be able to have consistency, right? And have that
Mhm.
same kind of anchor point. There's so many
Yeah.
things that I think it's one of those sports where if you develop bad habits, that's going to take longer to erase those. And
Oh, no doubt.
having someone there from the very beginning be like, okay, George, do this, do that, arm here. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay, to where I got comfortable. That was really,
Yeah.
really helpful. And
Yeah.
he was like, hey, we can stay here until you want, and
Yeah.
or you can go ahead and get comfortable with what you want. And I was like, all right, let's take this move. I'm going to go ahead and step off and kind of hit the pause, because I had also kind of started getting a little bit fatigued with my left hand. I was
Oh,
like, I'm
for
not
sure.
used to it.
Yeah. No, it's a different set of muscles, man. Everything's different.
And I've tried it, man. I went out to the ranch. We had a day. It was 100 and something degrees out. We're like spreading seeds out and like kind of doing all this work. And then I was like, I'm going to try it afterwards. I was like, never. When I'm super fatigued, I was like, oh, this will be smart for me.
Yeah,
No,
for sure.
no.
Yeah,
Like
no,
chasing
it's
arrows in the woods.
yeah, yeah, it's brutal, and they're not cheap either. That's the one thing I always laugh about. People who go to TAC, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to buy 2 dozen extra arrows," and then you're like $400 to just go shoot them into wood trunks and break them off. You're like, man,
Dang it.
an expensive hobby here.
It is.
But
It is.
yeah,
But
no, it's cool.
there's nothing like it, man. There really is nothing like it. And, I haven't gone into the live animal. I'm hoping in December when I get out to South Texas, there's a few setups there, and I hope to have that kind of confidence, because I'm not going to step up until I know I'm confident and I have a certain, shot that I'm having in consistency. But I'm getting there. But it's, I just wanted to give some props to your guys there, because that was something that I hadn't ever been to a store, whether it's rifle, whether it's archer, any kind of like outdoor hunting stuff, where I've had that kind of care, determination to make sure that I'm helping it, and the patience. And really, I just want to make sure everyone knows it. When you go there to Archery Country, you're going to be treated wherever you are, and they're going to elevate you to that next level. And I think that you've set up something amazing with your staff there, and I just
Yeah,
want to
I
applaud that.
mean, that's been the goal. I really appreciate that. But and that has been like hearing that is the ultimate, compliment, because like I said, we strive for that, and it's frustrating when you get the stuff that you hear it, you see a Yelp review and some guy's like, yeah, I was there for 10 minutes and they didn't help me, and I'm like, well, that was on a day when we were hammered, and I guess we thought we had talked to everybody. It wasn't on purpose. It wasn't that we were ignoring you or anything like that. I'm like, come back, try it again, man. That's not us. That's not who we are and all that. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that, like I said, you have options. You can go buy everything you got on your bow from a Amazon or a Lancaster or whatever. So the reality is, it works both ways. For us, it's just as important to be that for other people, because that's what is paying our bills and putting food on our table, is us being able to like have the knowledge of the site and stuff like that. You can order a spot hog, but then you got to put it together, figure out how to sight it in, and then figure out how to build a tape for it and all that stuff. And we got that down to a 30-minute fine art where you walk in, there's no guessing. We're not like, well, let me go read the instructions. We're like, no, come on, man, we're gonna do this. We'll be done in 20 minutes here, man. Let's get this sucker rolling. So
Well,
it does.
you talk about that too. Like there are a lot of people that's something that is always going to be needed, because you even talk about some of these celebrity folks who are very well off, very great hunters, but the nuanced technical part of being able to put together that and tune up a sight to a certain way, or tune up the bow to a certain way, figure out how to go ahead and adjust the draw weight. That is so many different nuances in that archery world, and each piece of equipment you need to know how they move and how it's interplayed. And that's something that even if someone can shoot really well and they have that discipline, they might not know that background to it.
Yeah.
And that's where you're still going to always have business where people are coming through doing that. I mean,
No
like
doubt.
the Cams of the world, the Joe Rogans of the world. It's like they're still coming to you for a reason because that's what you have the expertise in,
Yeah.
and you have that expertise in customer care, which is
Yep.
kind of, bringing those together in that way.
Yep. No, and like I said, that's exactly what we have been striving for since day one. That's what we're trying to do. But yeah, you're exactly right. That when you get into it, there's so many moving parts on a bow at any given time that you can see how it can go south. I mean, there's people that dry fire bows and the limbs are busted and the cam's bent and the strings up in the tree, and you're like, what in the world just happened? So when it goes bad, it goes bad. Like it's expensive, it's not a good thing. And we see it daily in here. And a lot of it is just not knowledge. Like they don't know. Like they didn't know you can't draw your bow back. So like I said, this goes back to the first stuff. When you come in, we had a influencer girl in there this morning that we were talking to her and we were like, hey, so here's the deal. Don't let your friends play with your bow because they're going to want to draw it back. And if they draw it back and they don't know how to let it down and they accidentally let it down, well, it's going to dry fire. And now you have a bow in a million pieces. And she's like, noted. I'll tell my friends, don't touch my junk or whatever. And we're like, yeah, that's 101. Like you wouldn't know that if you don't know it. I mean, she was looking at it, trying to draw it back. If you don't know, you don't know. So the reality is you, like I said, it goes back to what I said before. You take them where they're at, which, like I said, Chase, Tank, Tommy, Jordan, all of my guys are really, really good at that. That's the one thing we've all been good at, is kind of taking people where they're at and being like, cool, man, this guy already knows not to do that, but he might not know, man, on that Garmin side, it's going to suck the battery drive. You let it, so do this or whatever. There's so many moving parts to this stuff. And luckily, it's a benefit of our shop. And I think it's why we're a better shop than a lot of other shops. Not that we're better, but it's why I think we're more apt to work on anything is because we have so many people that come through daily that we're tuning 10 bows a day. So we're going back and we're taking an old Bear, and then we're going with a brand new Hoyt, and then we're going to a 3-year-old Matthews, and then we're going to a 4-year-old PSC, and then we're going whatever. The list goes on. And we're tuning those bows. We're messing with each one. And then a guy comes in and says, hey, I just got the brand new Spot Hog. I want to set it up. And we're like, cool. Yeah, we've set them up. We've set lots of them up. Guy comes in with a Garmin. We're like, cool. Let's go out back. We've done tons of these, dude. That's easy. We got to run through this and all that. Guy wants a new Excel or whatever it is. We've messed with all of it. And it's a benefit of ours because we're in a bigger town and we're a bigger shop that has a reputation. I don't expect a little tiny shop in Kentucky to have the knowledge we have, because they don't, they might deal with 4 customers a day and one of them's just trying to get some arrows and because his kid ruined them playing swords in the front yard or something. I mean, that's the way it happens. Like sure. They don't see that much stuff. So we have the benefit of being in a big town where there's lots of moving parts and all that kind of stuff. So we're tuning and we're working on bows all day, every day. So my guys have a great, huge knowledge bank of stuff that we've worked on and we've done. So when you come in, I'm not saying you can't stump us, but there's a 99% chance that one of these guys is going to be like, no, I set them up. Or, hey, last time I was doing those old PSEs, dude, they like to lean all the way in on the top, whatever it is. You can say, hey, this is the way it plays out. Like you got to do this. This is where you start. And then once that happens, literally it takes out all the learning curve where you're back there for an hour trying to figure out why this thing is tearing through paper and shooting funky and you can't figure it out. My guys figured it out in 2 shots and they're like, yeah, no, we got to do this. Tommy said the last time he messed with him, this was it. So I think that's one of the things that sets us apart from other shops is we're so big. We're dealing with so much stuff all the time. And they're all smart guys. They're all guys that get it. They're mechanically inclined. They know what they're doing when they grab a bow. They're not wondering. They're not looking at Instagram or YouTube or whatever. That was the funny when we had Saturday. We had a guy come in and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "Can y'all tie a D loop on a bow?" And we were like, "Yeah, we tie probably 30 a day, man." We're like, "We can do it in our sleep almost." And we're like, "What you got?" He's like, "I just need a D loop." And so we're like, "Well, yeah, give me the bow. You got an arrow? Let's do it right now. So he's like, oh, I don't have to drop it off. And we're like, no. And so my guy grabs it, goes back. It was Jordan. He puts it on a stand, puts the arrow on it, levels it, makes sure it looks good, ties D-loop in 3 minutes. And so the guy goes, and that's it. It's perfect. And he was like, yeah, go shoot it. It's perfect. Be great. It'll work for you. And the guy was like, so you, not to throw anyone under the table, but he was like, I was at a big box store an hour ago. And he goes, I told them I wanted a D-loop on this bow. And he goes, the tech took it, went in the back room, and was gone for like 30 minutes. And he was like, so I walked back in the room after 30 minutes because he was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to leave this overnight or like what. He's like, I don't know what the deal is. And he goes, so I go in there and the tech has the bow on the thing and has the top part of a D-loop tied on the string and is watching a knock-on video on the computer screen, like trying to learn how to tie a D-loop off of a knock-on video. And he goes, I just told him, hey man, don't worry about it. It's cool. Do I owe you anything for what you've done? I'll just figure something else out. So he comes into our store wondering if we can even do it and how long it takes and all that. And I'm like, dude, I was like, I would venture to say that Jordan could tie a D-loop in a minute in his sleep and have it look perfect on a string. I might not be in the right spot because you gotta measure that.
Yeah, you got to open your eyes for those.
Yeah. I could blindfold and be like, yeah, here's your D-loop. Pop. There you go. You're ready to rock, man. What do you got? What else? But people don't know. So if you don't know, you don't know. You're coming in blindly hoping that you're going to a place that knows what they're doing. It's no different than being like, my brakes are squeaking. Is it the rotors or is it are the brakes shot or is it totally fine? They got a little piece of gravel in there. I don't know. That's why I'm at your shop asking you. It's the same deal. We're trying to provide a service and do it as honestly and best as we can and do all that stuff. And that's ultimately what sets us apart from other shops is we're trying to be better and all that kind of stuff. So
sure,
anyway.
man. Well, and like
Yeah.
you go to these big box stores, and I mean, I've seen it time and time again. The person that's behind the counter isn't necessarily the person that knows everything about what they have. I mean,
Yeah, they might have just
there's
moved up from the shoe department.
100%, 100%. Well, I mean, there's a big sports and outdoor store here in Texas, and they have a lot of different things you can buy. And there's a whole different, like environment where you can go in there and you can see everything. You can kind of pick out what you want. But when you go for the expertise behind the counter, there's like times where people, oh, you can only hunt deer with a 30-06 here.
Yeah,
And I'm
for
like,
sure.
what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I find myself, it's hard to go in those because I might be going to get ammo or something like small or whatever it may be, just like, and then I kind of want to be like, hey, you can do that with any of those rifles up here.
Yeah.
Here's
By the
about,
way,
it's
all
placement, and just so it bums me out when I see those kinds of things because I see people being steered in the wrong direction. I'm like, it's not my place to step in here, but you might want to go to a specialty shop. And that way you can get that type of hands-on experience, people who have that true knowledge base they can pass on. And that was apparent when I came through to your store there. And
that's awesome.
what I've also a thing that I really like that I've seen a lot here in the last few months, and as I kind of learned more about you and we kind of chat with some mutual friends and things too, is all the events that you have too that I think bring people to the door to kind of be a part of these different events you got going on. And I'd love to kind of chat a little bit about those. You had Jesse Griffith's mutual friend there who's coming and doing wild hog cooking. You got Tyler Jones from the Element as part of the Meat Eater. And that already is going to bring people to the door. And I think those who were a little maybe uncomfortable, they're inquisitive, they're walking through your door, and then they're like, they might be, leaving as like,
Yep.
bow hunters by the end of the day, or just someone who loves the practice of shooting and the discipline of learning a sport. Because not everyone who walks through are you trying to get up in the stand and get blood on their arrow, right? Like there's a lot of people and even children and different youth group things are going on. So you have so many things going on. I just want to, take some time to kind of piece apart, like what are some of these events you've got going on? The Bat City Archery, I think is what it's called. And
Yeah, we just did that one, which that's a huge one, man. So it's a really cool thing. The super short version is there's a guy named Jim DeLine here in Austin. Jim had a daughter in an elementary school right here in these neighborhoods, right within 5 miles of us here. His daughter wanted to do archery, so he started an archery team at her elementary school. She goes into middle school. did the same thing. She goes into high school, did the same thing. So he started 3 programs, kind of like following his daughter and all that stuff. It blossomed into this year. He has 15 elementary, middle, and high schools with 500 kids doing it. And he's got a waiting list of other schools that want to do it, that are waiting on either A, funding, or B, a facility, or it's some capacity they want to do it. So I had lunch with Jim, and I was like, "So what do you actually need?" And he's like, "You get down to brass tacks." He was like, "It takes a couple $1,000 to start a program." He's like, "You got to have Genesis bows, because they do the NASP. They follow the NASP program, which is the National Archery in the Schools program. You got to have the Genesis arrows. They try and make it a level playing field, so it's all the same bows, all the same arrows. They can't have sights. It's all instinct, stuff like that." So long story short, I was like, well, I can't donate. Like, my kid's school, they're trying to onboard a program right now. My kid would be a stud. My older boy would be an absolute killer in this thing. My younger boy might, I don't know, he might grab a sword and like an arrow, like a sword, and just start beating his friends. But my older boy's a stud. Anyway, they're trying to build a program. Well, it costs a couple $1,000. So the reality is, he's like, "Man, I could really use you as a coach, because I've seen you help kids and stuff like that." And I'm like, "Dude, the plate is full over here." I was like, between 2 kids, a wife, 2 businesses, the taxidermist is hammered, this archery shop is busy. I was like, it's not possible. It's not an option. But I was like, I can cook a bunch of food on a Saturday, and we can sell plates for $10 a pop and whatever. And he told me they on this last Saturday, I didn't stay up overnight because I had a Traeger, luckily, and a buddy of mine had a Traeger too, so we cheated on that part. But we made pulled pork and sausage and hot dogs, sold plates. I bought it all. I didn't ask for anything back from it. We donated all the money. They made a little over $4,000. So now they can onboard 2 schools that weren't going to be able to do it, because they needed to buy the 10 bows and the 10 sets of arrows and the targets and the backdrop and all the stuff. So the reality is, my point to that whole story is, there's probably 15 programs like that around that I'm not aware of. But if I can bring awareness to it and all that stuff. So what I did, I went back to the customer service aspect, which is relying on community to build it and grow and do all that stuff. So I called on my archery community, and I'm like, "Look, I know a hunter might not care about a 5th grader over here at Highland Park Elementary School, but it's the future of our sport. It's a really cool thing. It's getting kids off of iPads and doing stuff. It's a cool thing, man. Why wouldn't we want to give back to that? Why wouldn't we want to foster that and try and grow that?" Which, we raised $4,500, which is legit. The community thing is huge for us here at Archery Country, for me at least personally, because I've relied on that to build this orbit that we're in right now. So we have a mutual friend in Jesse. Well, a bunch of people were like, "Man, I'd love to see him butcher one, start to finish. Like, I not just look at his book, because you can learn a lot through that, but
Sure.
it'd be cool to see the dude do that." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Why don't we cook?" And you cook some stuff. He made like wild boar chorizo tostadas and rice and beans, and then we showed everybody. We had 100 people show up, and they got a book. They got a hog book or a turkey book, and he did the whole deal. When we do that stuff, people are just like, "Dude, this is so legit." They were like, "I've never thought I would be able to be around Jesse or eat his stuff or see what he does or see if he's really as legit as everybody says he is, or whatever." It's that way with all of it. We have John Dudley come through here. We've had Cam Haynes come do events. We've had all kinds of people. We had last year, one of our really awesome ones was, have you ever heard of Barklow, John Barklow with
Yeah.
Sitka? So Barklow and Aaron Schneider came here and did a backcountry 101. Here's what you look for in a pack. Here's what you would want to do in this and all that. Well, people eat that stuff up. It makes us look like studs because they come here, and I'm like, all I did was give them a venue. We
Right.
put a bunch of chairs and tables in the range, and they do the hard work. And we're like, yeah, I had Josh Smith from MKC come in and do knife sharpening demonstrations in here last year. I mean, it just moves mountains because people are like, man, how do you get these people? I don't know how I get them, but I do know this. I do know that the community draws together. Everybody tells me the same thing. After we do one of those events, they're like, man, what a cool deal. They were like, we should do more of this stuff. And it's one thing that I don't see a bunch of other shops doing. I don't, there's some really big shops. West Houston and Houston, that is a giant powerhouse of a shop. But I don't really see them doing like events like we do and stuff like that. And I'm not saying we're better. I'm saying it's how I did my business model for this is I was like, I want to build on the community because eventually you connect with these people and they're like, well, Tyler's my guy. I don't really go anywhere else because that's my guy. Or you have like what's happening right now. People are like, well, I know I can buy Q80 broadheads and have them delivered to my front door, but that doesn't help you help Jim DeLine build a kids school program. So I'm going to come spend my money with you. It's the same cost both ways. It's just now I got to spend the trip over here to come yap it up with Tommy and Jason or whatever, it's that kind of stuff. So the reality is when you build that community, it's kindling on a fire. It feeds itself. And eventually it's just, there's this ethos of people wanting to come and wanting to be a part of it. And then they're like, well, what's your next deal? What's the next cool thing that you're doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to work on it. And then all of a sudden it happens. I get a call from somebody and they're like, hey, let's do a cool event over there. And it just always happens. And I've tried to do them now to where 3 or 4 times a year, we're doing something that's really, really cool that moves the needle. That's not just a nobody like Jesse's deal. We're talking about doing something with Jesse where we shoot a deer that morning, but I do almost like a taxidermy demonstration, like the way I would want to cut it for a shoulder mount. So we have this deer hanging up in our range that we shot this morning. So I'm like, here's how I gut it. Here's where I cut to make my initial cuts for taxidermy. You might not know this. You might not know I need a lot of the brisket for a shoulder mount. A lot of people see a shoulder mount on their wall and they're like, oh, well, this looks about right. And then when they bring it to me, I'm like, that doesn't work, man. I don't have enough brisket to cover all the mannequin. I don't have that. People don't know it. So I told Jesse, I was like, why wouldn't we do a cool thing where it's a collaborative effort of a taxidermy / meat processing? And he's like, I love it. Let's try and figure something out with that. So now we're going to do a thing where I come in, we have a whole deer. I show people the way I gut it. I show people the way I would skin it for a shoulder mount. And then I say, cool, now we're going to let Jesse show you the meat part of it because he's way better at it than I can do it. I totally know how to do it. I'm not near as fast or as efficient with a knife as Jesse is. But here's how you do it. And then we can go a step further. Hey, y'all want to learn how to make sausage or make tamales? Here's how you do that. Here's what the next steps are for that and all that. That stuff moves mountains, man. People love that stuff. And they're looking for something to plug into a community like that of cool stuff. And it's not out there for the offering. There's, these little archery shops don't have a budget for it or they can't and all that stuff. And we're fortunate enough, we're okay on money. So when stuff like this happens, I'm like, yeah, I can cook $500 or $600 worth of pork butts overnight and donate it to that. They made $4,500 towards their kids program. That's awesome. That's a $600 write-off for us. Didn't hurt us that much. And man, look at the community impact. I got 10 new parents that were like, well, we're going to start coming here. I just thought it was for hunters. They were like, I didn't realize this was like kids could come here and all that. And they see my kids running around shooting bows and yapping with my guys and having a good time. And they're like, gosh, I had this place pinned all wrong. I thought it was only for hunters and stuff. So yeah, like I said, building on the community, building on the customer service stuff, it moves mountains, man. It's how you do it. In my opinion, it's how you move the needle forward. And I know it works because I talked to some of these bigger distributors, the Matthews and the Hoyts and the Q80s and the Hamskys and all these guys. And they're all like, man, when you think of like shops making a splash, you guys in the bow rack are the two that come up. And the bow rack has Cam Haines pumping a bunch of stuff through it. And we're doing our thing. And They're like, oh, the only two I see. They're the only two that I like that are nationally like making moves and going towards something better. So it makes you feel good. You know, you're doing something kind of right, halfway right.
Well, man,
So
I know it's cliche, but if you build it, it'll come, right? You bring
for sure.
this idea and these ethos together of community, of respect, of teaching people, meeting them where they are and helping them get to that next level, whatever it is, incrementally. Sometimes it's leaps and bounds. Sometimes it's like a lesson to lesson that they get better. But
Yep.
y'all's patience, the camaraderie that I feel that you have when you step into your shop is it's not like anything I've seen before. And I've gone to West Houston Archery. I can see it across from my office right here. And they've had some great guys that helped me out there too, because I
Yeah.
went there to
They're
kind of make
great.
sure I was putting the equipment on
Yeah,
because
for
I
sure.
just happened to live, a little bit further
Yeah.
from Austin. But my first stop was at yours for a reason because of all those things, because of everyone who I know and people in the industry who have all said the same thing about your shop, and that it's like that experience is second to none. And there's a reason that you guys have that kind of attention. And I love that you're about it the right way, man. It's about that community aspect and having these types of things where you're bringing in new people in such a great
Yep.
way. And like you just talked about there too, that's amazing you're doing that with Jesse and the idea of like getting ready for taxidermy. My buddy and I, like, we're just literally, got that melanistic dough, and it's like he wanted to take the whole cape, and he's like, huh, okay.
Yeah. Where do
And
we
you're on the
start? Yeah.
YouTube, right? And I did it the first time I shot my melanistic buck, and I was in 16, and I'm like, what the heck do I do here? I
Yeah.
have
Now
no
what?
clue. But
Yeah,
would
for
I
sure.
have in a second, any one of us that any of my friends that hunt would have gone to that to see, like, okay, what does a professional do and how they're breaking apart this animal and how are they making this cut to be able to get this piece of meat off? Like, there's things that I might have known in my 30 something years of hunting, and it just takes that seeing that one thing. Oh, that's a better idea. That's a better mousetrap. And just seeing how other people do it, it's just a cool. Oh, okay, well,
No,
maybe I'll
and
take it, leave it.
yeah. And I was going to say that matters because if you ask any of my guys, I've skinned deer for them, and they're like, dude, you are bar none the fastest skinner I've ever seen. They were like, you can skin a deer faster than anybody I've ever seen. And it's a point of pride for me. I'm like, yeah, I am. Well, I'm down at a ranch in South Texas a year ago, and they were like, hey, get Julio over here. They were like, that dude will whack one out. And Julio comes over, and I'm like, dude, I look like a sloth, like a freaking two-toed sloth with a knife, like, compared to that guy. I'm like, so my point to that is there's always somebody bigger and better and all that stuff.
Yeah.
At some point, you just need to know how to do it. Like if you just saw, man, I remember I was at that Jesse Griffith thing in the archery range, and Tyler just did a round cut around it, and then he started cutting this, and then it all kind of fell down. That's all you need to see. Like people don't need the nuance. They're not trying to become the fastest skinner or the best one in the world. They're just like, where do you start? Like, what do you start? Like, if I'm trying to gut this pig on the ground, where do I start? Do I start up at the sternum and go down? Do I start at the butt and go up? Like, what's the move? Like, how do you do it? So seeing it once or twice helps. But my point to that is like, it's good. It's building on the community aspect again. It's getting people together, all learning at the same time, and not trying to be better than anybody else, not trying to be anything you're not. You just come in and say, hey, man, there's 10 different ways to skin this. In fact, there's a dude that works on the Southern M Ranch and Pearsall named Julio that would smoke me at this. But here's the way I do it, and it works because now you have a piece of taxidermy that the guy's not going to be like, oh, I don't have enough brisket, you can't do a shoulder mount, or we're going to have to find another cape, or we're going to have to cut the skull plate again because this is all jacked up, and we're going to have to do some modifications here or whatever. You can get away with all that. So the point is like the community building and the team and like having people that just keep coming back to the well, it means a lot to me because it means you're doing something right. And everybody is like, man, what a cool deal. They've like, some guys were like, I've seen Jesse, like there was two guys at that event that had been to Jesse's like one-on-one course, like the one where you pay and it's five guys watching him break it down. And they were like, I just wanted to see if this was much different. And they were like, it wasn't. And this was way cheaper. And this was awesome. I learned almost as much as doing that. But they were like, man, it was such a cool like event because it was not just like you and Jesse right here and him being like, here's what I do next. Pop, I just hit that and broke the pelvis or whatever. It was 75 people in a little huddle And he's like, hey, all y'all watch this because this is kind of cool. And this will help you if you're out on the, on a Sendero and you're trying to do this in the dark. And this will make it way lighter or easier or whatever it is. It makes a huge difference, man. And people love it when they're all together eating good food and all that. It's pretty easy. Like building community is one of people have asked me like how I do it. And I'm like, it's the easiest thing in the world. It's literally putting food in front of people and drinks and getting people in a big group and being like, hey, this is what we're doing tonight. That's community. You don't have to add or subtract or take a bunch of stuff to it. You just have to be like, hey, man, we're all going to watch Jesse cut up this pig. And by the way, he's making wild boar chorizo tostadas. We're going to eat good and we're going to learn. And everybody thinks they just had an epic experience. And I'm like, all we did was make tostadas and watch him cut up a pig. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it is. So
it is.
cool.
Will you create that space for that, man? And I mean, there's other ones coming up. I mean, by the time this airs, you'll have just finished this up because we're recording this here kind of mid-October, but you've got Tim Kennedy. Tell me a little bit about that because I know that's kind of the most recent one by this time.
Yeah, so that's this Friday. So what that one is Tim Kennedy is doing what he calls a bow provider course, which Tim Kennedy through Sheepdog Response does these courses, whether it be pistol or long range shooting or grappling. Like he's got all kinds of stuff. Taekwondo, you can do, you can do jujitsu, you can do it all.
Sure.
The bow provider course is them teaching you what they do when they bow hunt. So they're going to assume you know how to use a bow and arrow. You're going to go hunt. You're going to go do all this stuff. And then fast forward, you're going to come in and you're going to say, cool. Well, now that we've done that, here's the next step. We're going to go hunt. So we're going to go put y'all out. We're going to go hunt some stuff. We're going to try and get a pig or something, a deer or something. And now we're going to blood trail. We're all going to blood trail this together. So if you hit it good, there's a bunch of blood. You're like, oh, wow, blood, 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 blood. Here's the animal. This is awesome. So Tim is doing the bow provider course, which is learning how to bow hunt. The first night of that is going to be here at our shop. I want to say there's like 30 people, 28, 30 people that are coming. Some of which have hunted before, some of which have never shot a bow before. They don't even know what they're doing. We're going to take them all where we're at and do what we normally do. I've got my guys showing up. We're going to set bows up. We're going to make sure they're comfortable with them. We're going to make sure they know what they're doing and all that stuff. And then we're going to go back on that range. And from 4 to 8 or 9 that night, us with Tim's instructors and Tim, we're all just going to go at it and see if we can make sure everybody there is pretty confident with a bow at hitting a bullseye at 20 yards before they leave. And then they'll go on Saturday to their other class. But bow provider stuff is pretty cool. Tim's got the sheepdog response thing just in general is a really cool thing. It's all about being a little more self-sufficient, being a little more like wary of your surroundings, a little more about being self-reliant. Like you don't need somebody else there. If you're a woman, you don't have to have your 6'5" husband looming over your back in a dark alley. You can handle it yourself, whatever. It's that kind of stuff. He's teaching you life lessons and stuff. And this is the one we're doing with him. So Tim's another influencer that comes through the shop, friend of mine, good buddy, cool dude, does really cool stuff. So this Friday should be a really cool deal. We'll see what happens, but I bet it's like the rest of them. It'll be a fun deal. So,
well, I mean, you just keep providing space for amazing things to happen. The community continues to grow. Again, I recommend for anybody who's looking to get involved. And obviously, we're here in Texas, and you got people that come from other states to come check this out. I mean, anytime you guys go through and you get a chance to check out Archery Country, I highly, highly recommend you guys do it. There's a reason why the buzz is aplenty all across the nation, man. And there's it's great to be able to go in there and say hi to Tyler and go see the crew, man. It's a fun spot. And
grab a drink and hang out.
Heck yeah, man. Well, before we leave, I had a couple other questions that I kind of wanted to tackle. And, one is about this idea of legacy, right? You have talked about a lot today, the community, building this group, the camaraderie, and it's around, archery, but I think it's even more than that too. It's about mindfulness and about this approach that you have of, whether it's kids and everything. And obviously that, you have a spot for this that you've created.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you as far as like that idea of like legacy, what it is that you want to leave behind and be remembered for? And, not just in this professional setting too, but in a personal one as well. Is this something you kind of think about on maybe not necessarily a day to day, but is this something that comes through? Or is it, what you want to be able to kind of build and make sure that you can pass on to others and that kind of that amplifies out? What is it that you kind of view as when someone talks about legacy?
Yeah. That's a good one. I didn't think about that. um, what I would tell you for legacy is leaving a positive mark for the ones that you love. So my kids and wife are my kind of everything right now. Um, I would love it if the legacy for me personally would be what a cool dude. He tried to, help people out. He tried to take people where they were at and help them, whether that be archery or, in life in general, whatever it is. Um, Taking them and just being a good person. And I'd love for my kids, if I'm dead and gone, for my kids to be like, man, my dad was a really cool guy. He sold goats online and did dumb stuff. But man, at the end of the day, he had really cool, like he believed in really cool stuff, and he believed in it enough to keep pushing forward for it. And at the end of the day, I would want to be remembered as just someone who was who tried to make everybody better and tried to become friends with everybody and all that. The world's crazy to begin with. You can get on the news right now and see how everything is falling apart. It's crazy. And I know my kids are going to have not a rough go of it, because they don't have a rough go of it. Our kids deal with different circumstances than we had. I was talking about this the other day because I was thinking about how spoiled my kids are, just in the sense that it was like a Friday night, and my youngest, I was like, "Well, if you could have anything for supper tonight, what would you have?" And he goes, "Ooh, we should do a ribeye with some new potatoes and some of those string green beans." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds good. We can do that." So I'm at HEB. Fast forward an hour later, and I'm buying like freaking prime ribeyes at the meat counter, and I'm like, if I was a kid and I would have told that to my dad, he would have been like, "Oh yeah, you want to eat that in your Lamborghini on your private island? Like, you freaking high right now? Like, what are you doing? Talking about eat your freaking spam and macaroni and cheese." Anyway, I think about it, but it's a different set of circumstances that our kids are going through, because they have to watch the news of people beheading other people because of hate for something they don't even know what they hate them for. They're just taught from an early age those people are bad and we're good. It's a crazy world we're all living in. And taking that back to legacy, um, I would want my kids to be like, man, he was just a good man. He was a person that tried to help others and tried to build community and tried to do cool things. Like I don't have any illusions of trying to be something I'm not. I don't think I'm ever going to be a Joe Rogan and have a massive following and have tons of people, looking to my every word for what I should buy or what I should do next. But I can affect the ones that I do touch in my smaller circles and stuff like that. And that's what I like about, like, my guys here at the shop, Tank and Tommy. When kids come in for the archery program, I have kids at our elementary school that come up and they're like, "Hey, is Mr. Tank there today?" And I'm like, "He's there every day, man." And they're like, "I'm going to give him a high five when I get there." And they've made it a point to where we don't charge these kids to come practice. So they all come in, they high five my guys, they ask how their day was, and then they run back on the range and shoot their bows and take off. That's a legacy. In my opinion, it's a legacy. It's a cool, it's they're garnering something, and they're remembered for something that maybe those kids might remember that when they're kid. I mean, when they're an old man, they might be like, "Yeah, I remember walking into the archery shop and there was this giant guy named Tank, but he'd high five me every time I'd walk in." Or Tommy was riding his skateboard and talking to me about this or whatever. That's legacy. And going back to it, like I said, that's what I would want. I would want to be known as the dude who tried to build community, tried to do cool stuff, and tried to have a cool little ethos around him. And I'm hoping one day that my boys do it like I do for my dad. Like, what a cool man. He gave, he tried his best and whatever. So that's the super long version of that's what I want my legacy to be.
Hey, well answered, Tyler. Well answered. No, and I can speak to that. I already know that you're creating this, you're continuing to. There's all these different events that you're putting together, making the space for that to happen, and it's a beautiful thing. For those who want to follow in the journey, learn more about Archery Country and yourself too. Can you go ahead and give us the socials, website, address of where they can find you in Austin and kind of go from there?
For sure. So the website is austinarcherycountry.com. If you go to that, there's a little link on there that will like run you to like just basically SMS and email blast on what we're doing and events and stuff like that. Our socials is the same. I'm terrible at our socials. I have a guy, he used to be a guy with like Yeti and all that. There's a guy named Sloan Brown that runs my stuff. Sloan's a stud. He makes us look way cooler than we actually are. But and it's actually a lot of fun to follow us on Instagram. We do a lot of stupid videos, but anyway, it's all lowercase Archery Country for our Instagram handle. Facebook's the same. The reality is that's the best places to follow us. Other than that, you can catch it kind of if you come into the shop. We're always putting posters up of the next big thing and stuff like that. So we'll be doing more stuff. But yeah, austinarcherycountry.com and lowercase Archery Country, all one word for Instagram and Facebook. So
Nice, nice. Well, I'll have all the links and your physical address down below in the and descriptions there. So everyone, I highly encourage you to check that out. Before we leave, is there anything that you want to kind of tell folks who are maybe beginning to have that spark of interest to get into archery? What is it that you want to kind of impart to them, and maybe kind of a message and kind of welcoming them in, and what is it that you'd like to say?
heck yeah, no, I for sure would. It's just take the first step. You got to walk in the front door. That's step number one. You'll see when you take the first step in, it's always intimidating. It's never going to get easier. You're always going to be like, can I draw this much weight? Can I pull whatever? You'll have a million excuses. Walk in the front door. You'll see the guys are going to be super friendly. There's probably going to be some cool music playing in the background, and grab a Coke if you want and walk around for a minute and check it all out before you go approach a guy at the counter or whatever. They're going to come find you. But man, the first step's always the hardest one. And going back to like what I was saying with Donnie Vincent, like the first step's the hardest one. He had to work it up for 3 hours to actually get in, to walk in the front door and then make the first thing. And it ended up being a good experience. You never know until you're there, but you got to take the first step. So I would implore people, give us a try. Don't think it's all super rednecks that are just wanting to hunt and not wanting to talk to you and all that stuff. That's the biggest thing that I fight over here is I'm in Austin. It's a liberal stronghold, and I'm in the belly of the beast. I'm literally in the smack middle of it. You can't get more central than I am. And these people that come in and don't know what we're about and who we are and what we're doing and all that stuff. And here we are. Like you come in, you make the first step, and then you're like, man, what a really cool deal. They always leave, 99.9% of them leave thinking, man, what a cool bunch of guys. I wish I'd have done this sooner. Whatever. So come see Tank and Tommy and Chase, Jordan, me, Nick, Andy. I got a bunch of guys in here. We'll all put you at ease and have some fun while we're doing it. So yeah, man.
Right on, man. Well, I encourage all you guys take that step, man, and go over there, check out Archery Country in Austin. Tyler, once again, man, I'm so glad we connected. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and
No,
sharing
thank
what
you,
you
man.
do.
We'll go do some hunts, man. We'll go do some hunting together. I'll get you out to my place and we'll go see what we can do. Get you some blood on an arrow.
I cannot wait. I look forward to that, man. Well, listen, until we meet again in person and hang out, thank you again. And, appreciate all your staff there. Please give them all a big hello and a thank you. And, yeah, man, we'll see you around the corner.
Yeah. Thanks again, George. Appreciate it, man.
Cheers, brother.
Bye.